Welcome back to Occupy Nevada County Television for the 99%. I'm Eric Thome. I'm one of quite a few members of Occupy Nevada County who've been doing this television program for the last month or so. We've been covering quite a few topics of concern to everybody except perhaps the 1% wealthiest people in the country, various ways that people are getting pretty badly jerked around. And one of the worst of these is the whole question of foreclosures, of people losing their homes because they can't continue their payments to the banks, even though these arrangements are often either totally undocumented or sometimes completely fraudulent. With me today is Peter Galbraith, who is a leading member of the Foreclosures Working Group and probably the most knowledgeable of our local people about the very complex question of foreclosures. The Foreclosures Working Group and other members of Occupy have been actively seeking out people who need help, and we've gone to several of the auctions of foreclosed upon properties that take place every week on the courthouse steps in Nevada City. This week, the rally that occurred there became quite dramatic and became the main story in the local union newspaper. We'll be just talking about this some later in the program, but right now I want Peter to give us an overview of what has been going on recently and why are so many people in so much trouble and why are so many people so angry at the banks?
Well, there's been quite a bit of things happening nationally. There's been a number of reports showing that there's been a lot of difficulty with the paperwork and the means in which the banks are foreclosing on people's homes. The San Francisco County Assessor Recorder produced an assessment of foreclosures in San Francisco, looking at 400 foreclosures, and found that 85% of them had problems and illegal paperwork that was used to foreclose on the houses there. A report done by the Department of Housing and Urban Development that shows that not only was it just low-level bureaucrats or clerks that were doing the robo-signing, but it actually became a policy of the banks. And it seems like there's a broad policy and industry method of foreclosing on homes that are questionable, and they're seem to be using fraudulent documents in order to substantiate their claims on people's homes.
Just to give the banks the benefit of the doubt, I'd like to say that it's been the practice for many years for banks, once they sign people up for a mortgage, not to manage the mortgage themselves, but they sell them to organizations like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and to other investors who quite often move them away so that the banks no longer know exactly what's happened to them.
Well, not only that, before the investment bankers became involved with the mortgage industry, your local bank would give somebody a loan, and they would hold that loan for 30 years, and they took the risk of if anybody would default on the loan, and so they made sure that the loans were good. Now that the securitization occurs with the mortgages, which means they sell the mortgages, they sell the risks, so they're not liable anymore. So they don't really care whether the loans are good or not. And they take these loans and they pull them together and they mince them and cut them and dice them and then sell them to investors, telling them that these are secure investments, when in fact they are based on subprime loans. The question is to what extent they knew that they were not AAA, but they sold them as AAA. So when the economy collapsed in 2008, people started to default on their loans, and the banks, not only did they sell these loans, but they also insured these loans. So they're actually getting insurance money for them. Anyway, so when they did this pooling of the mortgages and selling them, they invented a electronic registry in order to keep track of all the complicated financial transactions. And when they did that, they began to just not do the normal filing of papers in the local county registrars. And so that then later on, when they wanted to foreclose on the houses, they didn't have the proper paperwork. So they went back and began to manufacturing this paperwork. And this is the basis of the claim that these documents are fraudulent.
And that's what I was going to say, that even if you give the banks the benefit of the doubt in the initial process, they've clearly been finagling pretty badly in the last couple of years when they've been asked to come up with the paperwork. And now the attorney generals of all of the states came to an agreement with many of the large banks, the largest banks about this, in which they supposedly paid $25 billion. But does that actually free them from liability? Can they still be?
There's a certain period of time from where they were doing the robo-signing that it actually does give immunity for those fraudulent or criminal actions. But our California Attorney General is saying that, well, we can still prosecute them for mortgage fraud. So, but she did seem to kind of give away the ship on that one. And the settlement is really just pennies on a dollar. It doesn't really amount to a lot. In our own experience, I've been to the county court registrars and county registrars and looked at papers and documents, and I have myself seen documents that seem not to make sense, that they were predated, or that one thing became before the other. What I found was basically, so what happens is that when the financial crisis happened, a lot of the banks and the people who gave these mortgages, these loans, went bankrupt and disappeared, went out of business. Now we find 5 years later, all of a sudden, these entities are starting to file papers. And these papers are saying, well, we're going to give the right to foreclose to whoever it is that now is trying to foreclose. But there's no way that, some kind of assistant vice president of these defunct corporations can legally be passing on that right to foreclose.
So who does have that right? Maybe no one.
It's unclear. Yes, it's possible that no one. But certainly, the whole point is that when somebody comes into our county, into Nevada County, and says that they want to foreclose on our neighbor's property, we want to know that the documents that they're using are legal and proper. And it seems to be very reasonable, considering how widespread this practice is, that there are some questions, and we don't really know. What we're asking them is that come and show us the validity of your papers. Come before a judge, a local judge, and demonstrate that the papers that you're using to take people's homes are proper. That's all we're asking.
Now, in some states, that's actually required.
In some states, California is considered basically a non-judicial foreclosure state, whereas the other states, you have to, in order to foreclose on a house, they have to basically sue the homeowner in court. And at that point, they have to demonstrate that they have standing, that they have some legal right to foreclose. Whereas in California, since it's non-judicial, that means there's no court supervision of the process. And so they're able to actually just to do what they want. The way that happens is that when you sign your mortgage, you're giving the trustee, which is the mortgage holder, power of sale. Basically, you're signing a document saying that you will allow your house to be sold by the trustee if you fail to make your mortgage payments. So they don't have to go to court.
So that's why there have been rallies in the last month or so, why Occupy people have joined other members of the community, and specifically people whose homes are either have been foreclosed upon or are threatened with foreclosure, and have been there to give support. And I know back in February, a woman named Melanie Cornell, she was threatened with foreclosure. The Occupy people went to support her, and the foreclosure auction was postponed. It was postponed until last Wednesday.
Correct.
She was back there again, and in the meantime, she'd done a lot of her homework, and it looked like the people who were trying to foreclose didn't really have any grounds for doing it. And we'll get into what happened a little later, but it was very interesting to see how many people were there. There were several people who'd read up quite thoroughly on the law, and they were ready to confront the auctioneer, and actually did confront the auctioneer in a way that the court administrator found objectionable, but we have videotape of it, and it seems like it was happening really quite peacefully. It was only threatening if the auctioneer or other people involved in the process knew or suspected that they were doing something illegal or immoral.
Services, trustee number CA11420228, Tomb Destination Property, report to be Carol A. K. Andrews, common unmarried woman, reported July 21st, 2005, incident number 2005-0027-819, official records of Nevada County, State of California, covering property in the state, county, and state, described as safety number 54-230-06, Tomb Destination Property, report to be 24476, Rest of Way, Grass Valley, California, sale for today, sale for today is including no warranty, conveyance, excuse me.
Is this one postponed?
This is going to sale.
It's going to sale. Here's a stay against the sale. You will be in violation of federal law.
What is that for?
That's for Beverly Road.
That's already postponed if you'd listen.
You read that one off?
It's postponed. If you guys are making so much noise and listen, you'd understand.
Well,
that's why it's no warranty is given as completeness, correctness, for this sales property is being made on as-is basis without covenant warranty expressed from flavor and title, condition, possession, encumbrances, or an habitation, authorized place to clear till dead bed and mount.
So here's a little bit of what Melanie Cornell had to say about the process she underwent last Wednesday.
One of the nasty things that has occurred over and over is that when you're told that your property won't be sold because you have a stay against the sale, sometimes they just do it anyway, and that's a huge legal battle all by itself. So I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, we had an auctioneer here today who was in violation of Civil Code Section 1812 and California Penal Code Section 115. He works for a company called Recon Trust that has been shown not to have a bond that's required of them in order to do these sales. He's supposed to give us his name, and he refused to do that. This fellow was a little different. He hurried through what he was doing, and then when we asked him what his name was and to show us his bond, which he's supposed to do, he ran down the street, literally. He ran away. I was so polite when I spoke with him. I said, "Sir, there's a stay against the sale of one of the properties you may be selling today." And he kept talking and told me to be quiet and leave him alone and all this good stuff. But I know this is a hard job for an auctioneer in these times, but I'm here mostly because they've used a forged deed of trust, fraudulent assignment of the forged deed of trust. They've used fraudulent documents in my case, and when I started researching this problem with my own loan, I couldn't help going in and looking at the county records to see if they had done it to anyone else. So far, all of the paperwork that I've looked at where properties have been assigned, I haven't found any that are valid yet. I recently went through training so that I could do auditing and reporting on loan documentation, and what I found shocked me because, I don't know, I haven't found any good loan documents yet in the records here.
That was Melanie Cornell describing the fraud she believes has been inflicted upon her in the foreclosure action that's being threatened. Shortly before I talked with her, she and several other homeowners who had either been foreclosed upon or threatened with foreclosure spoke with the auctioneer on the county courthouse steps. They were persistent, but I think very polite and low-key. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like he couldn't take it anymore. What happened?
Well, what they were doing was that they were asking for his identity, for his name and his bond number, I guess it is. What we've recently discovered is that in order for an auctioneer to sell homes or sell foreclosed homes, that they need to be bonded, and because of the risks that are involved in case somebody is damaged by improper foreclosure. So they need to be bonded, and it needs to be registered with the state. And what this man, Wes Davis, is showing is that they don't have the bond. And when the auctioneer was asked for his name and the bond, he became rather nervous. And when he very quickly finished what he was needed to do, and he walked away very quickly, despite the fact that people were asking him for his identity.
Some people even described it as run, but I would just say it was a very fast walk.
Well, yeah, I mean, eventually he began into a run, and
$356,002.62. Anyone here like to qualify on that property?
Can you speak louder?
The address is 24476 west of Wayne Grass Valley. Now in qualifying, going once, twice, third and final time, property sold back to the beneficiary at
That's how they do it.
1234.
That's how they do it. The banks buy them.
He's
committing a felony.
All right, conclusion of sales. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'm telling you that he just committed a felony. You need to get the law.
Excuse me.
They're just not following the proper procedures, and they're beginning to know that. When Melanie's case is interesting because the whole problem is trying to get these potentially fraudulent documents in front of a judge. The banks have been very insistent on finding ways to prevent it, and anybody that raises any questions are immediately kind of deluged from an army of lawyers, deluged by paperwork and documents, and they have to continually respond. And just moments before she was able to get these documents before a judge, the foreclosing entity switched it to a federal case. They shipped it down to Sacramento, and so she has to start all over again. And so the banks are doing everything they can do to prevent going before a judge, because they know that they've been losing. In other states where they have judicial foreclosures, they have been losing. The judges have been looking at the documents and saying, you have no standing, you have no way to show that you have the right to foreclose on these homes.
Now, in the Union story, it made it appear that the people who were confronting the auctioneer were Occupy members.
Well, the author really didn't make a clear distinction between, he just used the general description of demonstrators, but really what there is that what there is homeowners who are obviously and understandably very upset, particularly if they feel like they've been foreclosed on unfairly, that they express their anguish and despair and upset. And basically any of the loud speaking or confrontations were done not by Occupy members, but by homeowners. Whether we were there or not, those homeowners would be there. It's not like we brought them. That it was their homes being foreclosed. They were going to be there, and they have every. I mean, as Occupy, we don't feel we are in a position to try to say how homeowners should express themselves. On the other hand, as Occupy members, we are there and we're peaceful and nonviolent, and in fact, it might be argued that there's a calming effect by our being there. The article kind of doesn't make the distinction between the angry homeowners and Occupy, who's just simply trying to bring attention to this crisis and bring attention to the fact that there very well may be serious questions about the legality of the foreclosures that are happening.
Now, another person who didn't make this distinction was the court administrator, Sean Matroka, who actually afterwards raised the idea of possibly having a restraining order against demonstrations in front of the courthouse because he claimed that it impeded access to the courthouse. I think if you see the video we have, it's quite clear that that was not the case.
Yes, he was saying that people would be intimidated from doing business at the court.
Right. And one person, Melanie Cornell's sister, Joy Garner, actually yelled at him that where he was standing in front of the courthouse was impeding access for people who wanted to get in. I don't think he responded to that.
No.
Now, the main thrust of Occupy strategy right now is not to just keep going to the courthouse every couple of weeks, but to actually get new policies adopted by the state of California or by local counties, like a moratorium or court review. Can you tell us a little more about these?
Yes. The foreclosure group of Occupy Nevada County has a number of approaches. One is that we're searching the documents at the county registrars. We're also supporting homeowners who are facing foreclosure with information and knowledge and support. We're going with them to the Public Law Center to get help. We're going to them when they're facing the courts, and trying to do support groups with them. What needs to happen is there needs to be a moratorium. There needs to be stopping the foreclosures until we can settle and understand whether these are viable foreclosures or not. So the first step would be a moratorium and to stop them, so that because once the foreclosure happens, it's very, very difficult to reverse that. And also, so we're looking for a local possibly local ordinances that would prevent the foreclosures, or to see when there's an expense to the county when all these homes are being foreclosed on. They're empty. They become a hazard. The courts or the county's not getting its revenue. There's a lot of social costs involved with the foreclosures that the banks are just blowing off, and I think that the county and the local community need to redress the crisis.
And one of the reasons we're here on Occupy Nevada County Television is to inform the public of what's going on, and especially in dramatic cases like last Wednesday's, but also to get support for the supporters. In a sense, we'd like other people to join us in helping the homeowners who are fighting foreclosure. And what should people do? Well,
people should get a hold of us, contact us as soon as you feel like you're may be approaching defaulting on your mortgage, you should please come and contact us, and we can talk about it and try to figure out a strategy for you. Once you have a notice of default filed against you, then there's a time clock that's going on. It's a kind of a 90 days before that you get to try to work out things with the bank, and then there's the notice for a sale, and then there's another number of days from that. So hopefully people will contact us early in the process so that we can actually have help. You can get hold of us by going to our website. It's occupiednevadacounty.org/foreclosures. That would bring us right to us. Or you can reach us by email, which would be foreclosures@earth-justice.org. And you can email us there. That would be a good way to reach us, and then we can see what we can do.
And we're sure that we'll be back on this program in the upcoming weeks and months, because this is an issue that is not going to go away. There are going to be either a lot more foreclosures and a lot more angry people, or we're going to have to do something like moratoriums to stop it.
Good.
Goodbye. Oh, okay, thanks. How are you?